Hey guys, welcome back. This week we're going to talk about systems in organisms. So, this, like always, are your objectives and your vocabulary. This is all on Quizlet. You do not have to write it down, so stop writing. The objectives, or what we're trying to do this week, is by the end of the week, you should be able to explain the functions of the mitochondria, chloroplast, ribosomes, lysosome, cell membrane, and nucleus. And you should be able to distinguish or tell me the difference between prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So what we're going to start with is levels of organization. And we've done this before. That's why we're starting here. I want to work off what we've done before. So if we look at this, we know we've talked about the biosphere. That's what we just spent all our time talking about. That would be the world. And then if you go down a level, you can talk about, we did biomes, but then ecosystems, right? Which is your living and non-living all together. And then we talk about our community, which is all the living organisms in one space, right? We've done all of this. And then we could talk about our populations, which would be all of our organisms of the same species that live in the same area. Our organism, which in this picture would be like our elephant, right? And then we stopped there. Okay, we got ourselves down to the organism. Now we're going to take these levels and we're going to go even smaller. Okay, because we've already talked about the big world and how organisms interact in that. Now we're going to go lower. So from organisms, they're broken up into organ systems to keep the organism running. So think of the organism as like the world. And now we're going to break it up into its pieces. So organisms have organ systems. Organ systems are made up of organs. Organs are made up of tissues. Tissues are made up of cells. Cells are made up of, I'm going to add another step in here, organelles, right? Organelles are made up of molecules like water, carbohydrates, right? And then molecules are made up of atoms, okay? And this drawing brings you from the biggest to the smallest, okay? If you're looking for a drawing for this page of your notebook, you can write all of these words out and put arrows between them would be a great drawing. Just make it big on your page and colorful, all right? So now let's talk about that second half in a little more detail or explain why we're doing it. So first, switching systems, which is what we're doing right here. Like the environment, organisms have systems within them that work together to keep them alive. So we talked about the systems within the environment, like the carbon cycle and the whole predation and prey and symbiosis and how things interact. Now we're going to talk about systems that are within our bodies and how, or our bodies, plant bodies, animal bodies, and like my drawing, Beast Boy's body. Okay, and how it keeps us, him, plants alive. All right, so organisms, and I say organisms really with a real purpose because it's not just humans, have systems that keep them alive. All right, they have systems in their body that create proteins. They have systems in their body that digest food, absorb and transport nutrients. They have systems in their body that regulate them and help to maintain homeostasis, which homeostasis means keeping things in balance. They have systems in their body that are going to grow, maintain, and repair them. Okay, so we're here at the system level. Let me get my pen working to make it red. We're here at this system level, right? And we know systems are made up of organs, which are made up of tissues, which are made up of cells, which are made up of organelles, which keep good old Beast Boy here alive and functioning. All right, so all of these systems rely on the smallest functional unit, which is the cell. So cell theory tells us that tells us three basic principles, and it was made up of from these three guys in the picture, Schleiden, Swan, and Virchow. They came up with cell theory. The three principles are first that the cell is the basic unit of structure and function of all living things. The second, all living things are made of one or more cells. And the third, all cells come from pre-existing cells. So you can't like, boom, make a cell. All cells come from other cells. They divide or they combine to make another cell, right? Combine would be reproduction. Divide would be reproduction too, but different reproduction. So with this, we know that all living things are made of cells, right? Because cells are going to be the basic unit where all function begins. So when we talk about cells and all living things are made of cells, there are two different types of cells we need to talk about. There are prokaryotes and eukaryotes, or prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Prokaryotic cells came first, all right, so they evolved first. Eukaryotic cells came second. prokaryotic cells have no membrane-bound organelles, meaning they have no organelles that are made up with a membrane, so they have no nucleus. They have no mitochondria, okay? Eukaryotes have a membrane-bound, or have organelles with membranes. And then prokaryotes would be our bacteria, eukaryotes would be our protists, fungi, animal, plants, everything but bacteria is eukaryotic, okay? How I want you to remember this is pro, no. So pro and no rhyme. I want you to write this in your notebook, okay? So prokaryote, no membrane-bound organelles, no nucleus. Eukaryotes, you do. Eukaryotes do have membrane-bound organelles. They do have a nucleus. They do have mitochondria, and eukaryotes make up your body, okay? So when we compare prokaryotes and eukaryotes, we can see things in common, things that are different. And we can also compare them to viruses, right? Because they're a different creature than both pro and eukaryotes, all right? So what I want you to do in your notebook, on a notes page, I want you to draw these 3 circles. Make sure they overlap in the center, okay? Make sure they overlap on the sides. So give it a second, draw those circles. All right, now that your circles are back, and I hope you paused the video and drew those. Now that your circles are back, I want you to start by putting the big names. So prokaryotes, virus, and eukaryotes into your circles. And what this is a Venn diagram, and it shows us the characteristics that each one share. So prokaryotes, okay, they have a nucleoid and they have chlorophyll in their cytoplasm. That's just prokaryotes. Okay, prokaryotes and viruses, this area right here is where prokaryotes and viruses overlap. They both lack a nucleus. Okay, prokaryotes and eukaryotes both, I lost my thing, both have ribosomes, cell membranes, and cell walls, right? Because prokaryotes and eukaryotes share that area. Eukaryotes by themselves are this stuff. They have a membrane-bound organelle, they have a nucleus, they have Golgi bodies, right? Those are our membrane-bound or organelles that are made up with a membrane. Nucleus, mitochondria, Golgi bodies, okay? Those are all big ones. Vacuoles. All right, and then all 3, viruses, prokaryotes, and eukaryotes, all have this stuff in the center. They all have cytoplasm and some type of genetic material. Okay. Now viruses are a little bit different than bacteria or prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Viruses actually are not living. We've mentioned this before in one of our lectures. They're not living. They're not able to reproduce on their own. They need another cell, either prokaryotic or eukaryotic, to live in. Okay, but I like to have them here to compare and contrast them with the other cells that we talk about. So pause the video, make sure you draw that because that's an important slide. Next, cell organelles. So cell organelles are parts that do a specific job to keep our organisms living, okay? And here's 2 pictures of cells. I kind of like these pictures actually. And we're going to talk about the organelles in those cells. I have them grouped together in specific kind of areas because that's how they work. So chloroplast and mitochondria, they both work together to get us energy. Chloroplast take the sun's energy and turn it into sugar using photosynthesis. Write that here. PHOTOSYNTHESIS. Photosynthesis. Okay, so they're going to take the sun energy and turn it into sugar. We're going to talk about that in a few weeks. All right, mitochondria then take the sugar and turn it into ATP. ATP is the cell's energy. Okay, so mitochondria are going to take it and turn it into ATP so that the cell can run. So those are both our energy factories. Plants or green organisms have chloroplasts. Every eukaryotic organism is going to have mitochondria. So plants have mitochondria and animals because all of them need to break down those sugars to get energy. Next, we have nucleus and ribosomes. Nucleus, oh, and in our picture, here's our chloroplast. right there. And here's our mitochondria right there. That's one. Oh, actually, you know what? I lied. This is a mitochondria for this one. MIT. I lied to you. These are my chloroplasts. CH. Those are chloroplasts. They have the little circles in them. Okay. So chloroplast and mitochondria in my picture. Nucleus and ribosomes. We can look at this and we know this big circle right here is the nucleus, not the little one, not that. That's the nucleolus. The big circle is the nucleus. And then ribosomes are our little dots, right? Especially the ones that are on our endoplasmic reticulum. And I know you've done all of this before in middle school. I am playing off of the fact that you've done this in middle school. And if you need to review this, you should look up a cell and look at it. So nucleus and ribosomes are both used to make proteins, and they work together to make a protein. So the nucleus stores the DNA, which is your instructions for making a protein, and then the ribosomes take that information and make a protein out of it. It's almost like a kitchen where the nucleus is the recipe book and the ribosomes are the chef. Okay, so they're going to work together to make proteins which keep our body running. Okay, we'll talk about that towards the end of the year this year, different types of proteins that our bodies make. And then lastly, lysosomes and cell membranes. Okay, lysosome and cell membrane. Lysosomes are these larger circles right there. Okay, and then cell membrane is the green or the blue. It goes around. The green or the yellow. Cell membrane goes around the cell. Okay, these are both organelles that are used to help maintain homeostasis. All right, so they're both used to keep our body in balance. Lysosomes contain digestive enzymes that are used to break down waste. So recycle waste, macromolecules, and cell parts into their actual monomers or into their smaller pieces. So they take those big chains and just break them up so that we can use all the little parts again. Our cell is great at recycling, right? We take carbohydrates, we slice it all down until we get to our carbon, our hydrogen, our oxygen, and then we take that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and we put it back together in different ways so that we can use it. Lysosomes help us do that. They break things down so the rest of the cell can put it together to use it. All right, that's how that helps us maintain homeostasis, because it helps us make and break things that we have in our body. Cell membrane helps us maintain homeostasis because it's selectively permeable, which means it only lets some things in and out. It gets to decide, not really, it doesn't actually have conscious thought, but because of the chemical makeup of it, it lets certain molecules into our cell and certain molecules out of our cell. And we'll talk more about that actually next week.